For I know the plans that I have for you, says the Lord. Plans for welfare and not for evil, to give you a future and a hope, regardless of where you come from, your background, your education, your status, or who you think you are. God has a good plan for you. And I believe that God has a good plan for me. And the things that I have achieved are just a foretaste of the things that God has planned for me. And I do believe that inspiring others is what God has called me to do. And I do it with a lot of grace. And I would like to welcome you. My name is Lydia. If you're new here, welcome and feel at home. Welcome to our community. And if you're returning, if you've been following us and watching my channel, please do feel at home as well. And thank you so much for your support. Thank you for your comments. Thank you for your feedback. Thank you for all the people that have reached out to me, especially after I uploaded the last two videos on my relocation journey. And I am a strong believer that we are here on earth for a very divine purpose, for a very specific purpose. Now, come with me. There was a king and his people, who we call servants, and who we called servants in those days. And this king called one of his servants and decided to send him to a far distant land. He adored him with all the resources, with all the skills, with the money, with everything that you would think that is needed to be able to do an assignment, and set him off to that distant land for a very specific purpose. And he was supposed to return after a number of years. And the servant set off to go to this distant land, and time elapsed, and he had to return back to his master. When he returned, his master, of course, gathered him and gathered everyone so that the servant could report back. And he asked him, "So I send you to this land for this specific purpose, and I would want you to report back." And the servant said happily, "When you send me to that land, there were these problems and there was this, and this is what I was supposed to have done." And you know what? The servant did not do what the master had sent him to do. He did other things, like we do other things that we have not been sent by God to do, things that makes our hearts contract, really contract. We feel, "Oh, I'm not supposed to be doing this. This is not my calling. This is not my purpose." But we end up anyway, still doing them. And this is what that servant did. And his master looked at him and he told him, "Although you have achieved all these things that you're reporting about, I sent you to go and do this very specific assignment, and you did not do." And so, you know what happened? The servant was pushed out. He was banished. He was told to leave the king's palace. And sometimes I feel, and sometimes I think, when we appear before him, if there's a day that we will appear before him, before our God, he will ask us what we were able to achieve when he sent us to this earth. Why? Because you and I are here on earth for a very specific purpose, for a very specific reason. And I am so glad that I am fulfilling one of those purposes that God has sent me here on earth to do. Inspiring others is like what is what I breathe. I mean, you can never be around me and not be inspired. But why do I do what I do? I do it because it has been inspired by my journey. And some of you that have followed me for quite some time, or some of you who know me, or some of you who will know me, will know that I have come through a long journey. I was born in the village, in a small village in central Kenya. That is where I grew up. I think when my mom gave birth to me, she was just 14 years old. And my grandfather, who I love so much, was very harsh. He was a hard man. And he, after giving birth, my mom had to run away to the city to go and fight for a better living for us. He left me with my grandmother at 8 months. And so I was brought up by my aunties, by my grandmother and my grandfather. When I was growing up, people knew me as Nyambura of my grandmother. They knew me as and even up to date, I use my grandfather's surname as my son as my surname before I changed to Mungai's on my late husband's name. And you know, it wasn't easy growing up in the village. And those days, people were not very gracious to us. They called us bastards, or that child who was born in the kitchen. And I knew poverty. I didn't have many clothes. I used to rely on my aunties after those worn out clothes are the ones that you'd wear. I had one panty, one for Sunday, and I there was no hope for me. But I remember I had a dream that one day I would help children like me, children that were like me, that were born out of wedlock, that were born in poverty, that hoped that one day they would have a better life, to have a better life. And I'm so glad that God has elevated me to the level where I am, where I have impacted thousands upon thousands of families and children, especially through the organization that I work for. And that is another purpose which I believe that I was created for. And after growing up, of course, I went to high school and finishing my ordinary levels. My form for that time was a miracle. I remember I went to the first high school. It wasn't the high school that I was invited to, although I was a Naysayers student. It was the high school for failures those days. And there was no hope for me finishing high school. Why? Because my mom had no money. We didn't have enough. And finishing Form 4 or my ordinary levels, or my Form 4 those days, was a miracle. I remember there was a time I was sent out of high school for a whole term. And by the time I returned back, you know, people had progressed the algebra, which was a very difficult topic at that time, and my grades just went down. By the grace of God, I finished. I don't even know up to today how many people contributed, or even who contributed to pay my school fees for me to finish high school. I went back to pick my certificate when I got hired by the organization that I worked for in Kenya, because I hadn't finished my fees, and I'm so grateful to the people, although I may never know them. Maybe some are dead. I remember one of them was my late uncle, who sold his own radio to get me back to school, because they sympathized with me and they knew that I was this bright girl. And that was a journey when I was growing up. Of course, after some few years, I finished school, I went to college, and I got married to this amazing man who was my husband for 12 years. And just when life was blossoming and God gave us two beautiful girls, Favor and Deborah, and we will do a show with them here. God, you know, my husband was such a good man. Those who knew him knew he was a darling. He was loved by many people. Unfortunately, his family didn't like me for some reason. One of the reasons is because I was born out of wedlock and we were from a poor family. It was a kind of from a better family than I was. They were living in the city, in a city by, you know, that time. And God blessed us with two children. And just when our lives had settled, I had a better job, and my husband work was doing quite well those days, a disease just struck. And when we were in the process of relocating to another country, a disease struck me. And I had meningitis, and it was fatal. Yes, it was fatal. By the time I got to Nairobi Hospital, I didn't know myself, and I was quickly wheeled in to E&E emergency then. And when the doctor looked at me, they had to run all these tests, and they later confirmed I had meningitis, and it was fatal. I had this headache and the neck pain and the spinal cord. Sorry, my necklace, and the spinal cord, and I was there for quite some time. And the friends who knew me at that time, who would come to see me in hospital, the likes of Evelyn and Erishiba and others, and my lovely cousin who is a doctor, looked at me and sympathized with me because I didn't look like I would survive. In fact, when the doctor, after the treatment, the doctor said, take her home because her medical insurance it will be depleted and there is no hope that she would recover. And I remember when I went home, I couldn't see. I was blind. I couldn't see. I couldn't coordinate very well. My brain was semi-cabbagish, so to say. And there was no hope, I would say. But I had this strong will to live. I had this strong drive to live. And I kept praying and reminding God of so many orphaned children, of so many grandmothers and grandfathers who are looking up to me to support them with school fees or to support their children at that time with school fees through the organization that, of course, I was working for. And I looked at my two children, and I kept telling God and praying to God, God, if I recover from this illness, if you heal me from this illness, although everybody else has given up on me, I will tell everyone that you healed me, and I will show everyone and help everyone to the journey of healing, and I will inspire everyone that I meet to know that you're a God who heals, and that you're a God who is full of hope, and that you're a God who is able to do exceedingly abundantly above what we think or even imagine. And I told God I'll become a well of inspiration and I'll help many to healing. And I believe that I have a gift of healing. I do believe I've got a gift of healing. I have helped so many people to heal from either illnesses or diseases, or from their hearts, or from their marriages or relationships, or the things that they've been going through, or even impossibilities, looking at impossibilities. And God has made me, to realize that is another purpose, to help people to heal. So if you have a disease or a sickness or an illness that you think you cannot heal, know that God is a God who heals. He healed me 100%. I recovered my sight. I can see. I can reason. I have risen up from a junior staff that I was at that time to a place of power and influence where I work. I manage people. I manage other professionals, people that are of higher grades than I am. I am trusted by the organization that I work for because God has made me a spring of hope, or a well of hope to many others. And when I thought that I was recovering, I got struck again by a headache and I was lashed back to hospital. And after I came back from hospital, that was in 2009, I was just lying on the couch, and I remember we had our neighbor who had come to visit us that evening, and we discussed death with my husband. And I told him, if I die, because I feel like my time has come. Last year I survived meningitis, and this year I'm just from the hospital. If I die, I would want you to marry. And I pointed one lady that I wanted him to marry. But what I didn't know was that same week, on the 12th of December 2009, that my husband would meet his death. He would would go out with a friend for work and never return. I do remember that evening so well. We went out with we went out with a friend, and later he left me to go to the market somewhere, and Mama Jacqueline, the very precious girl, one of my girls, she's a celebrity called in the program called Zola. Jackie Matubia's mom called me, and I was in the city then, and they requested me to meet with them because they wanted to talk to me about their daughter Jackie then. wanted her to introduce me to her boyfriend. And what I didn't know is that they knew my husband was dead, and they didn't know how to tell me. So to cut a long story short, I can do I think there's another video. I can link it up here so that you can watch it. They drove me to my best man's house, and when I was there, that is when the police officer called me, and he told me, he asked me who I was. I asked him who he was, and he said he's a police officer from Gong, and he asked me whether I knew my Gibson, my husband. I told him yes, I know him, and they asked me who is he. I told him he's my husband. And he told me sadly he had passed away. He had died in a road accident. In my mind, I couldn't reconcile what he meant by death in English, that he was dead. Amekufa. In Swahili, amekufa. And so I rushed. I asked him, what are you talking about? Get my husband and fly him, call this number, check his wallet and look for this number, call an ambulance, let's meet in Nairobi Hospital or Karen Hospital, that is in Kenya. And what I didn't know is that he was dead. Of course, he told me, sadly, he died in the morning. And that was the beginning of a long journey. Of course, I rushed in the house and I called the people who were there, the friends who were there, who already knew. And I asked them why they were crying. And they couldn't answer me. And I told them there's this person who called, and he said that Gibson had passed away. He had died. And I couldn't still reconcile until when I called my friend, Erishifa. He's the one who screamed and asked me what I was talking about. And that is when it hit me that I had become a widow in my 30s. And I asked God, what have you done to me? Why have you done this to me? I'm just recovering from an illness. And I do remember days after that, when we were burying him, as I stood at the graveside and watched the people as they lowered his casket, and grief filled me and sorrow filled me. There was a pang of loneliness and defeat and hopelessness. I felt dead. I felt numb. And I felt like this life had no meaning anymore. But I told God, please take care of me and my children. Long story short, I realized that by then, maybe God was still calling me to inspire others. It was a long journey. I was rejected by my in-laws. Some friends left. I went through a valley of depression until one day when my doctor called me and he told me, Lydia, if you don't take care of yourself, you don't take care of your emotional yourself, then you will go through the same road as your husband. You've just recovered from meningitis, which was fatal. You got healed by the grace of God. And now you've got to take care of yourself. And then I realized, although I was broken, I had no hope, and there was no hope for me, that I have a responsibility to write my story. I can either give the pen that I was holding to another person to write my story, a story of depression, a story of defeat, a story of defeat, a story of sickness, a story of unhealthy relationships, a story that nobody would enjoy. Or I had the opportunity to take the pen on my fingers and with my hand and write an inspiring story, a story of hope, a story of resilience, and a story that would inspire others. I knew that I had a responsibility, and I was not going to give anybody else an opportunity to write my story. And so I stopped making excuses. I stopped making excuses with my life. And I knew, you know what, Lydia? You've got to change the narrative. You've got to change the things that you think that you cannot do. You've got 2 children to take care of, but you also got yourself to take care of. And so I had to let go many things. I had to let go the naysaying in me, saying that I cannot, that I am defeated, that I'm just a widow, I'm just hopeless, I'm not going to make it. And I knew that I had to change that narrative. And I had to let go the people that were pitting me, the pity parties, and take up my mantle and rescue myself. And I knew that that was my responsibility. My responsibility was to trust God for a better life for me and my children. And that was the beginning of a beautiful journey. It wasn't easy. Didn't take 1 year. It didn't take a few weeks. It took a few years. I was depressed for a few years. I lacked food. I prayed. I trusted God. But then I knew that I'm a child of God. And so we've been talking about taking another step. And maybe my work is to challenge you to resolve like I did. Make a resolution or resolve. And maybe my work is to call you out. Those who think that they're in a comfort zone, those who feel defeated, hopeless, and helpless, and feel like you cannot go any further. Maybe my work is to call you out, to make a resolution before the new year that 2021 will be a different year. To say no to the things that don't serve you. To say no to beliefs that don't serve you. To say no to dogmas of religion that don't serve you. To say no to things that don't make meaning to your life. Today, when I wake up every morning, or now when I wake up every morning, I wake up with gratitude, knowing that I am living a meaningful life. I'm living a life that is full of meaning and joy and purpose. Why? Because I made a resolution. Maybe it's time for me to call you out, to say no to relationships that don't serve you, to people that don't believe in you, and call you to say yes to your calling, to say yes to the things that God is calling you to do. Know that there are things that only you and you alone can do. Like we have fingerprints. It's only you that have these fingerprints, the pattern, no one else. Like Les Brown says, you're the only one who can speak the things that you speak, who has that voice that you are able to project. It is only you who can speak the things that are inside of you, that you've been assigned to do. And maybe for some of you is to travel to another country. Maybe your purpose and your reason is not in your country, in the country where you are born. Sorry, I have my notes here. And others are just sitting there and waiting for rescue, waiting for another person to come and rescue you. Take responsibility. Take responsibility of your life. Know that there will be nobody else, including your destiny connectors, including your pastor, including your parents. They will not rescue you. You've got to resolve to rescue yourself. Raise above your circumstances and your situations. If you're a widow like me, if you're from a single parent home like me, if you're a junior staff, like where I was a few years ago, raise above those situations and circumstances and take responsibility of your life. And after you've done so, ask God for help. You are his child. You are a child of God, aren't you? You are created in God's image and likeness. So you are his child. Stop asking others for help. Ask him first. Ask God first. He is within you. He lives inside of us by his spirit. So ask him. If you don't know your purpose, ask him. Use your faculties, use your intuition. Pray. Take time. Go for meditation. To go out for spiritual retreats and go inside and talk to God and ask him. He is your father. He knows you. He created you. He brought you here on earth. You did not bring yourself. You did not send yourself here like that servant. He sent you. Ask him for that assignment. Ask him to reveal to you that assignment that he has for you. Ask him. Talk to him. And after you've asked him, then wait for him. If it is to travel, if it is to build a business, if it is to work for an organization, if it is to serve others, if it is to serve your family, ask him. He knows it. He has the answer. And when you ask him, listen. Just don't stop just dreaming, sitting there, just dreaming. We are created to build experiences, and that's the experience, some of the experiences that I have been sharing here of traveling. I have traveled to so many countries of the world. I've had the privilege of traveling with work, especially for holiday. Me, that little girl who was born in a village, who people knew there was no hope for her. There was absolutely no hope for me. There wasn't any hope for me. But I've been able to travel to the world. Why? Because I asked him. I talked to him. And I do talk to him every day for myself and my family and my children. And connecting to the series, because this is part 3 of traveling, I do believe that we all have either limbs or legs, and even those who do not have limbs, like one of the motivational speakers who we know who has no limbs, and many others. There's no way that you can be confined in one place. You always find yourself moving, even if it is from the sitting room to the toilet. And I do believe it is a way, when we were created with limbs, it was a way for God to show us that we are not bound to one place. That he wants us to travel and have experiences and build memories. When we go there to our next life, whether you're a Christian like me, or you don't even believe in anything, or you believe in yourself, or you believe in a cow, or whatever you believe in. I'm not here to judge whatever you believe in. When we transit to that other life, there will be no traveling, there will be no relocation, there will be no jobs, there will be no experiences. And so enjoy them. We are created to enjoy them. You might not relocate, but maybe moving from your village to another town, to another city, or to another place post-COVID, after COVID is gone, when the restrictions have been lifted, opens your horizon. It helps you to interact with other people. It helps you to interact with other communities. It shows you that it is not only your mom who cooks good food, the other people who cook good food. It is until when I traveled to some of very good countries like Thailand, where I had a spa in a pool that boils hot warm water in Laguna or where. And other countries that I have been to, where you have experiences and you are like, wow, I thought Kenya is the only beautiful country. We have other beautiful countries where I have met with other people who have been good, others that have been destiny connectors, and others that have helped me in my journey. People that I call my angels, and maybe that is why I do what I do. Why? Because I have had so many angels along my way, that God has brought along my way to hold my hand and help me to go to the next level. So for you to build those experiences, and in the last video, I talked about how the step by step, there is a step by step. If you want to travel, if you want to relocate, if you want to go to another country, There are things that you need to be aware of. And so for me, of course, knowing that I really wanted to travel, that dream that I had of supporting other children, not in my village but other places. When I was of age, when I got married, I got a small passport. Those days it was a paper passport. You remember, it was a paper passport that I got from Nyayo House, and I was able to travel with it to Tanzania and to Uganda those days. And I got myself later a nice passport for me to travel, because I knew I wanted to travel. And when I got that passport, I had my first assignment. I had my first speaking and international speaking engagement with our national director then in Thailand, and we passed through Singapore. And there was this massive airport, my gosh. And I was able to travel with a few people, like I think Mary and others from our organization. And I was representing the organization then. And after then, I have traveled to many countries in Asia, in Africa, in Europe, I mean, many places. And for my children, when I made a resolution, when I resolved that it was time for them to travel. I remember, and I would tag that lady. Her name is Kola. She got me after work, seated on my desk, and I was busy on my computer, and she asked me whether I was working overtime. And I looked at her and I told her, Skosh, I have been to many countries and my children have not been. I want to trust God that they will travel with me. Even if it is Uganda, we can fly to Uganda and come back to Kenya, or even if it is Zanzibar or another country. But I'm trusting God that my children will travel with me. What I didn't know is that 2 weeks after, before I even got my passport, I had a call from one of my colleagues and my friend from Finland, and they offered my children's first trip. I didn't talk to them. I didn't beg them. I didn't ask them. They just invited me for my friend's 50th birthday to help fundraise for our organization. And we were able to travel with my children. And I do remember when we were going and coming back, I remember telling Deborah, I feel that this is the next time you travel alone to join me in the country where I will have relocated. And so I want you to know how you crisscross the airports and how you find your gate, and please don't accept gifts or luggage from anybody. Know how to travel, because I feel like very soon I'll be relocating to another country. And so immediately after I got the first passport for my children, the Finland opportunity opened up, and less than 6 months after that, because we traveled in 2016, April, May, June, July, August, September, 6 months after they flew. They didn't fly alone. I came for them to join me in the UK. So, faith without action is dead. It's like very, very dead. Know that you have a responsibility. As you dream of traveling, as you dream, or plan for your goals in 2021, know that faith without action is dead. You've got a responsibility. You can't just sit there and wait for manna to fall from heaven. You can't just wait there and wait for God to come and help you. There's a place. There is something that you're supposed and expected to do. God helps those who help themselves. Please. If I didn't apply for my job, I wouldn't have relocated. If I didn't apply for the passport, then I would have struggled to even apply for a job, I believe, because I didn't have the right documents. So if you want to travel, the first responsibility for you is to get your passport. Do you have your passport? Or are you just there waiting for God to help you? Do you even know where to get your passport from? Do you know how to apply for your passport? Or you're just there saying there's a lot of corruption in Kenya and you can't get your passport? Have you even tried before you start praying and asking God to open those doors for you? Are your travel documents? Have you done the basics? Have you stepped forward? Or are you just sitting down? Are you progressing towards your goal? And I always tell people that I coach, ask yourself, what can I do from where I am, with what I have, to move me to the direction of my dreams? And that's a quote from one of my coaches, Mary Mollison. What can I do from where I am with what I have to move me to the direction of my dream? So if your dream is to travel, make your first step. Get your passport, get your travel documents together. Apply for a passport. There's just 6,000 shillings, I think. You don't have to apply the diplomatic one or even the 64 pages one. You can apply if you want to travel to Uganda, apply, make an application. Some don't even know the process of applying for a passport. Go to eCitizen, my friend, and make sure you have an ID and you've got your PIN number ready. Open a free account on eCitizen and make your application. Stop making excuses. Say no to naysayers. Say no to the limiting beliefs that have been holding you. Say no to things that don't serve you. Say no to things that limit you from living your full potential. Say no to the things that hold you back from achieving those things that you so much desire. This life is a gift you've been given by God. There are so many people that have died in the past few years because of COVID. I've seen friends die, and we don't know where they go. And in that place where they go, we don't know what is there. And there are no experiences like we do have on this earth. What has God called you to do? Where does God want you to go? Where does He want you to be? Is it in your country? Is it another country that He's sending you to? Does He want you to travel so that you can have experiences? Does He want you to be a door opener to some of your family members? Like, I do believe that I am a destiny connector to some of my family members and to some of my friends. Sorry, I'm just picking my water. I do believe that I am a destiny connector for my mom. My mom was able to travel for the first time beyond what she even ever dreamed. She never dreamed of traveling abroad. She never dreamed, not even a single day, that she would ever leave home beyond Nairobi, beyond maybe Nakuru to see her sisters. But she'd been able to travel to this country. I never thought that my children would travel to the US. I dared. I did what I needed to have done. I took them to the embassy here in London, and they got their visa without any questions, without looking at the documents and bank statements. I was just asked where I was going, and I said I was going to visit my friend. She's late now, Mombi. And I would return back to work, and they got their 5 years visa. So today, if they want to travel to the US, they would, after restrictions. They would go and have experiences. My youngest daughter, Deborah, has traveled in this country, in the UK. And it is part of building her experiences. So today, what are we saying? I dared myself. I'm calling you today to dare. stuff that you've been fearing. Defeat that fear. Defeat that fear. Defeat the naysayers. Defeat the limiting beliefs that have been holding you, and rise up. In the next session, I'll talk you through how I almost messed up when I was applying for my work visa here in the UK, and I almost submitted the wrong, the wrong route, until God sent an angel who was my colleague then. We compared notes, and she advised us the right visa to apply for. Why? Because it was my responsibility to make the application for myself and my children. It is your responsibility to do the things that you are supposed to do. This is Lydia. She inspires all. Please do subscribe, do share this video and my videos with other people who should hear this word of inspiration, or who would like to dare together with us. God bless you, and do have a lovely day. Bye-bye.